Hello and welcome to London. Thank you for joining us. We are live at Buckingham Palace, where there's been a staggering number of people turning up to honour the Queen and to see the new King as Charles arrived for his first engagements.
It's just gone 8 p.m. here after a day of celebration and commemoration right across the country in Edinburgh. The Queen's casket arrived at the Palace of Holyroodhouse. Her children watched on in silence. It followed a 6-hour trip from her beloved Balmoral to begin her final journey. Her coffin was draped in the royal standard with a simple white wreath on top. Thousands lined the route to see and pay their respects.
Let's go straight to our reporters here in the UK for the very latest. We have David Woywood in Edinburgh and Eddie here in London. We'll go to David first. David, the Queen's coffin has just arrived at Holyroodhouse Palace.
Yes, good morning. That's right, Nat Koshy. She arrived here earlier today. It was a very mournful and respectful first leg of this final journey for Her Majesty the Queen, departing, as you say, her beloved Balmoral Castle estate. Earlier today, it was her happy place. We knew that she liked to escape there as often as she could. Well, now she has left there for the final time. It was the first time as well that we got to see her coffin today. It was draped in the Scottish standard and adorned in a number of her favourite flowers, we are told. It was a very slow journey today as well, 6 hours from Balmoral down here to Edinburgh. That was by design, a chance for locals to get out and line those roads, and thousands of them did, to see that coffin and to see the Queen there, pay their respects for a final time. Of course, at her heart, she was a country woman, and that was reflected by a number of farmers today as well, who actually lined up their tractors as well as their horses in a guard of honour. So some lovely images coming out of that first leg of this procession today. And then that final approach here to Holyrood Palace, up the Royal Mile again. Thousands and thousands of people had camped out. The road was 7 deep in some places there. A very dignified silence had taken over. People throwing those flowers out onto the road. And then as her casket passed through these gates here behind me, a very gentle ripple of applause. Her body was met here by a number of senior royals. It will stay here for the night, for 24 hours. It will then be moved on to the nearby St Giles Cathedral tomorrow, where she will lay in state for 24 hours, a chance for the Scottish people there to pay their respects before she is loaded onto an RAF flight on Tuesday for those final funeral preparations in London, guys.
Yeah, there were some beautiful moments in that. The tractors lined up, little things like that just warmed your heart. Eddie is here in London at Buckingham Palace, and Eddie, King Charles spent the day behind us here, down to business, meeting with dignitaries.
And no doubt, Nat Koshy, he was keeping an eye on those pictures coming in from Scotland all day. But today, yes, was the first official day of business here at Buckingham Palace. It started with proclamation ceremonies held across the UK, local council areas and bigger cities, officially recognising the beginning of the reign of King Charles III. And for the very first time, many people here in the UK singing God Save the King for the very first time. The King himself was here at Buckingham Palace conducting a series of official meetings, the first of many ceremonial occasions to be held over the coming days. He first met with the Commonwealth Secretary-General Baroness Scotland here before meeting with the representatives of the 14 nations that he is now the head of state. Important nations, of course, like Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and some nations also that have already said in the last couple of days that they plan to begin the process of becoming a republic. So a really important meeting for the new King, including there with our acting High Commissioner Lynette Wood, who was at that meeting. We'll hear from her a little bit later on. Following on from that, we saw some of those more beautiful scenes that you've experienced in the last couple of days as well, of the crowds here at Buckingham Palace waving to the King and Queen Consort, giving him such a warm welcome as he makes his way to and from the gates that has been his family home for most of his life. Tomorrow will be a really emotional day. From here, the King will begin his tour of the UK. He'll first start by going to the Houses of Parliament, where members will offer their condolences, and we'll hear the King's reply as well. So the second time we've heard from the King about the passing of his mother and the legacy she has left behind. And then he'll travel to Edinburgh, where David is, to begin that procession with the coffin. He'll walk behind the coffin as it makes its way to the cathedral with his siblings. So really the first time, Nat and Koshi, that he's probably had a chance to grieve in what has been an extraordinary few days for the new King.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, Eddie. Yeah, it's interesting. What people are saying, when Diana died here at Buckingham Palace, there was that sea of flowers right outside the palace, and this time many of them have been leaving flowers in Green Park, where we've been walking through. There's a sea of flowers there, a sea of floral tributes, and walking through is just astounding. There's Paddington bears. People have been leaving marmalade sandwiches, all sorts
It's
of
wonderful.
handmade cards.
Everyone's being directed to Green Park, and it's the mood outside Buckingham Palace is one of great respect for the Queen, but also of great encouragement to Charles as well, isn't it? And a lot of the commentators in Scotland were saying there's a marked difference between the sombre atmosphere in Scotland with the Queen making her way to Edinburgh and here in London, which is that mixture of sadness but also excitement for a new reign as well. Interestingly, all the flags in London, except for the Royal Standard behind us on Buckingham Palace, which is at full staff because that's where the new King is doing business, all the other flags have returned to half-mast after being at full mast yesterday with the proclamation. They're now at half-mast until the funeral. So it's a privilege to be here, isn't it? And so many people bringing their grandkids here to and see it as a real moment of history.
Exactly. We've been speaking to a lot of the families travelling from far and wide because they want to teach their kids and say, "This, you were here for a moment in history. You are living that," and that's what we're all doing, and we're sharing with you this morning.
Very special.